The champagne glass shatters against the marble floor 3 feet from where I stand, and I know immediately that my life is about to change in ways I can't begin to imagine. You stole from me. Marcus's voice cuts through the charity gala like a blade. You stole from everyone in this room. 200 faces turn toward me. 200 pairs of eyes belonging to Manhattan's elite, the wealthy, the powerful, the people who decide who rises and who falls in this city. And every single one of them watches as Marcus Hayes, the man I've worked for as a financial analyst for 3 years, points at me like I'm something contaminated. Security found the evidence in your office an hour ago, he continues, his handsome face twisted with righteous anger. Wire transfers, falsified documents, $2 million moved into offshore accounts under your name. The ballroom of the Plaza Hotel tilts. My breath catches somewhere between my lungs and throat. $2 million. Offshore accounts, under my name. None of it is true. But looking at Marcus's expression, at the carefully crafted shock and betrayal on his face, I understand with devastating clarity that the truth doesn't matter. He's planned this, set me up, and I walked right into it. That's not... My voice comes out wrong, too weak, too desperate. I didn't... The FBI is on their way, Marcus says, cutting me off. He turns to the crowd, playing to them like an actor who knows his audience. I trusted her, mentored her, and this is how she repays that trust. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. I see it happening in real time, the way their expressions shift from shock to disgust, to certainty. Because in their world, in this world of old money and older prejudices, it makes perfect sense that the black girl from Queens, who clawed her way into their circle through scholarships and 16-hour workdays, would be the thief. My legs want to give out. I lock my knees, force myself to stand straight, even as everything inside me screams to run, to disappear, to be anywhere but here, under these judging eyes. Miss Jordan, the voice comes from behind me, deep, controlled, carrying an authority that makes even Marcus's performance falter. I turn. The man standing 3 feet away is tall, easily over 6 feet, with black hair swept back from a face, composed of sharp angles and darker intentions. He wears a suit that probably costs more than my annual rent, perfectly tailored to broad shoulders and a frame that suggests serious time in a gym. But it's his eyes that stop my breath, gray, like storm clouds over the Hudson, and fixed on me with an intensity that feels almost physical. You're making quite the scene, he says, his accent placing him somewhere between New York and Italy. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private. Marcus steps forward, recognition in something else, something that might be fear, flickering across his features. Mr. Caruso, this doesn't concern... I wasn't speaking to you. The man Caruso doesn't even look at Marcus. His attention remains locked on me. Miss Jordan, my car is outside. I suggest you use it. I should ask questions. Should demand to know who he is, why he's helping, what he wants. But the sound of sirens is already filtering through the plaza's thick walls, and I can see security moving toward me from both sides of the ballroom. His hand extends, long fingers, a platinum watch that catches the chandelier light. Absolutely no reason to trust him. I take his hand. The world blurs. He moves with economical grace, guiding me through a side exit that most people probably don't know exists. His touch on my elbow is firm but careful, as if I'm something valuable that might break. We emerge into a side street where a black Mercedes with tinted windows idles at the curb. The door opens. I slide inside. He follows, and we're moving before I fully process what I've done. The interior smells like leather and something darker, something that suggests violence kept carefully at bay. I press against the far door, heart hammering, finally allowing myself to ask the question that matters most. Who are you? He angles himself to face me properly, and the passing streetlights illuminate his features in fragments. Strong jaw, full mouth, those storm gray eyes that seem to see too much. "Dante Caruso," he says, "and I just saved you from a very public arrest for crimes you didn't commit. If you're loving this story already, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Trust me, you won't believe where this goes next." The certainty in his voice makes my throat tight. "You don't know that. You don't know anything about me." "I know Marcus Hayes has been embezzling from his own firm for 18 months. Dante leans back against the leather seat, somehow making the casual position look dangerous. "I know he needed a scapegoat when the board started asking questions, and I know he chose you because you're smart enough to be believable, but not connected enough to defend yourself effectively." Each word lands like a punch, because he's right. All of it. Marcus had been too friendly lately, too insistent on giving me access to accounts and systems I didn't need, too careful to make sure my fingerprints were all over everything. "How do you know this?" I manage. "I make it my business to know things about people who operate in my city." His eyes never leave my face. Marcus made a mistake 6 months ago. He tried to launder money through one of my properties without permission. I've been watching him ever since, waiting to see how spectacularly he'd destroy himself. My city. The phrase settles in my chest with uncomfortable weight. Because people who talk about owning cities aren't usually the kind who file taxes and follow laws. I can't quite finish the sentence. "Careful, Miss Jordan." A smile touches his mouth, but it doesn't reach those gray eyes. "We're just having a conversation. Two people who happen to be at the same charity gala, who both witnessed an unfortunate accusation." The Mercedes takes a corner smoothly. Through the window, I watch Manhattan slide past. We're heading downtown, away from the plaza, away from the sirens, away from the life I spent 3 years building. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere we can talk privately." He pulls out his phone, types something quickly. "You have approximately 48 hours before the FBI obtains an arrest warrant. After that, even my lawyers won't be able to keep you out of custody while we build your defense." "Your lawyers." The words feel foreign in my mouth. "Why would you help me?" He looks at me then, really looks, and something in his expression makes my breath catch. Not attraction exactly, though he's easily the most devastatingly handsome man I've ever been this close to. Something else. Something that feels like calculation and opportunity. "Because, Miss Jordan, I need a wife." The Mercedes stops. I hadn't even noticed we'd arrived anywhere, too focused on trying to process what he just said. The driver opens my door and Dante gestures for me to exit. We're in front of a building in Tribeca, the kind of building that doesn't advertise its luxury, that doesn't need to. A doorman appears, greeting Dante by name with the kind of deference that speaks of both respect and fear. I follow him inside, through a lobby that's all marble and modern art, into a private elevator that requires a key card to operate. We rise in silence. 43 floors. The elevator opens directly into a penthouse that takes my breath away, despite everything else happening. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer panoramic views of Manhattan. Furniture that belongs in design magazines. Art that probably costs more than most people make in a lifetime. But what catches my attention is the woman waiting by the windows, mid-40s, elegant in a charcoal suit, with dark hair pulled into a severe bun and eyes that assess me with clinical precision. "Miss Jordan," she says. "I'm Sophia Benedetti, Mr. Caruso's attorney. We have a great deal to discuss." "Coffee first," Dante says, shrugging out of his jacket. She's had a difficult evening. Sophia nods and disappears into what I assume is a kitchen. Dante gestures toward a leather sofa. I sit, mostly because my legs have finally decided to give up on supporting me. He sits across from me, forearms resting on his knees, and the casual position doesn't disguise the predator underneath. "Let me explain your situation plainly," he begins. "Marcus has been very thorough. The evidence against you is substantial, falsified, but substantial. You'll be arrested, you'll be charged, and even if you're eventually acquitted, your career in finance is finished. Your reputation is destroyed. Your life as you know it is over. Each word lands like a hammer, because he's right. Even if I prove my innocence eventually, the damage is done. No firm will hire me. No amount of truth will erase the suspicion. However, Dante continues, I can offer you an alternative. Sophia returns with coffee, expensive china, cream and sugar already prepared exactly how I prefer it. I don't want to think about how they know that. What kind of alternative? My voice sounds distant, like it belongs to someone else. Dante exchanges a glance with Sophia. She nods slightly, giving some kind of permission I don't understand. I need a wife for 6 months, he says. Someone educated, poised, capable of moving through high society without drawing the wrong kind of attention. Someone who can play the role convincingly for my business, associates, and family. I wrap my hands around the coffee cup, using the heat to ground myself. Why? That's not relevant to your decision. It's absolutely relevant. I meet those gray eyes directly. You don't offer to save a stranger from federal charges out of the goodness of your heart. You want something specific. And I need to know what I'm agreeing to before I even consider this insanity. Something shifts in his expression. Approval, maybe? Or respect for the fact that I'm not completely dissolving despite everything. My grandfather recently passed away, he says carefully. His will contains certain conditions regarding my inheritance. One of those conditions is that I must be married before my 35th birthday, which is in 6 months, or control of his estate passes to my cousin, who would run the family business into the ground within a year. So hire an actress, pay someone to play the role professionally. I tried that approach. His mouth twists. My cousin contested it immediately. The will specifies a legitimate marriage, recognized by the state, with someone who has no prior connection to my family or business, someone whose background can withstand scrutiny. And you think a woman accused of embezzling $2 million has a background that can withstand scrutiny? I think a woman who was framed for embezzling $2 million by a mediocre criminal is exactly the kind of person who will fight hard to clear her name, Dante corrects. And I think that same woman would have very strong motivation to honor the terms of our arrangement, since I'll be providing the resources to prove her innocence. Sophia sets a folder on the coffee table between us. The prenuptial agreement. You'll receive $2 million upon completion of the 6-month term. Mr. Caruso will provide full legal representation to fight the charges Marcus Hayes has manufactured. You'll live here for the duration of the marriage, attend required social functions, and maintain the appearance of a genuine relationship. After 6 months, we divorce quietly. You take your settlement and a fully restored reputation, and we part ways. $2 million. My brain tries to process the number and fails. That's life-changing money. Enough to start over anywhere in the world. Enough to never worry about rent or bills or choosing between groceries and student loan payments. But it's also 6 months of my life pretending to be someone I'm not. 6 months married to a man who definitely isn't just a businessman, no matter how legitimate his lawyers try to make him sound. What do you really do? I asked Dante. And don't give me some carefully worded answer about import-export or commercial real estate. What do you actually do? He studies me for a long moment, then makes a decision I see happen in his eyes. I run a logistics and security organization that operates in legal gray areas, he says. I don't traffic in humans or drugs. I don't target civilians. But yes, Miss Jordan, I'm exactly what you think I am. A criminal, a dangerous man, someone who operates by rules I don't understand. If I say no, then you leave here, take your chances with the FBI, and I wish you the best of luck. His tone makes it clear exactly how much luck I'll need. But if you say yes, you have my word that I'll protect you, provide for you, and honor the terms of our agreement. The word of a criminal, the word of a man who keeps his promises, he corrects quietly. Always. I look at the folder on the table, at Sophia, who waits with patient professionalism, at Dante, who watches me with those storm gray eyes that seem to see every thought crossing my face. Outside the windows, Manhattan glitters. Somewhere out there, Marcus is probably celebrating his successful frame job. The FBI is building their case against me, and my life as I knew it is already over. If I do this, I say slowly, if I agree to this insane arrangement, I have conditions of my own. Dante leans forward slightly. Name them. I sleep in my own room. No expectations of intimacy beyond what's required for public appearances. I continue looking for work once my name is cleared, even if it's during the 6 months. And you provide complete transparency about anything that might put me in danger because of your business. Agreed. He doesn't even hesitate. Anything else? Yes. I set down the coffee cup and stand, needing to feel less powerless, even if it's an illusion. I want to know why me specifically. You could have found a dozen women willing to marry you for $2 million and 6 months of luxury. Why go through the trouble of rescuing someone from a very public scandal? Dante stands as well, and the height difference between us becomes more apparent. He's not just tall, he's imposing, built like someone who knows exactly how to use violence when necessary. Because, Miss Jordan, I needed someone smart enough to understand the role they're playing and desperate enough not to ask too many questions about the things they shouldn't see. He moves closer, not threatening, but deliberate. And because when I watched you stand in that ballroom and refused to cower even though your entire world was collapsing, I recognized something useful. Strength. Real strength, not the performance of it. That's rare. That's valuable. And that's exactly what I need standing beside me for the next 6 months. Our eyes meet. Hold. And I realize with uncomfortable certainty that I'm going to say yes. Not because I have better options, not even because of the money, though that certainly helps, but because Dante Caruso just offered me something. Marcus Hayes and every other person in that ballroom tonight denied me a choice, agency, the power to reclaim my life on my own terms. I reach for the folder. Where do I sign? The wedding happens 3 days later in a judge's chambers in Lower Manhattan. No family, no friends, just me in an ivory dress Sophia had delivered to the penthouse, Dante in a charcoal suit, and 2 lawyers serving as witnesses. The judge pronounces us married at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Dante slides a platinum band onto my finger. I do the same for him. And just like that, I'm Mrs. Caruso. We sign papers in Sophia's office afterward. Marriage certificate, prenuptial agreement, documents giving me access to bank accounts containing more money than I've earned in my entire life. It all feels surreal, like I'm watching someone else's life unfold from a distance. The FBI interviewed Marcus Hayes yesterday, Sophia mentions, as I sign my new name for the 15th time. They found discrepancies in his story. We've provided them with evidence suggesting he may have fabricated the charges against you. I pause mid-signature. That was fast. Mr. Caruso is very thorough when he wants something. Sophia's expression doesn't change, but there's something in her tone. Warning, maybe. Or acknowledgement of the kind of power Dante wields. We leave the office at 4 p.m. Dante's driver, a massive man named Vincent, holds the Mercedes door open for me. I'm still processing the rings on our hands, the legal documents that bind us, the sheer impossibility of everything that's happened in 72 hours. Dinner tonight? Dante says as the car pulls into traffic. There's a restaurant in Midtown I need to be seen at with my new wife. Wear something elegant. Not a question, an instruction. I should probably object to the assumption that I'll just follow orders, but I'm too exhausted to start that particular fight. Back at the penthouse, I find that my few belongings from my studio apartment in Queens have been moved into what's now officially my bedroom. A space bigger than my entire previous apartment with a king bed, an ensuite bathroom that looks like a spa, and a walk-in closet that someone has filled with designer clothes in exactly my size. We employed a stylist, Sophia says from the doorway. You'll be photographed frequently. Image matters in this world. This world, I repeat. You mean Dante's world. Your world now, too. She hands me a phone. New number. Only a few people have access to it. You'll find contacts for myself, Mr. Caruso, Vincent, and our head of household security, Marco. If you need anything, or if there's any kind of emergency, call immediately. I take the phone, feeling the weight of it, of everything it represents. Does Dante really think I need this level of security? Mr. Caruso doesn't think in terms of what's needed. He thinks in terms of what's smart. And keeping you safe is smart. Sophia pauses at the door. Dinner is at 8. The car will be ready at 7:30. She leaves me alone in my new bedroom, in my new life, with my new husband's platinum ring heavy on my finger. I choose a black dress from the closet, form-fitting but elegant, hitting just above the knee. When I emerge at 7:25, Dante is waiting in the living room, scrolling through his phone. He looks up, and something in his expression makes my breath catch. Perfect, he says simply. We don't talk much in the car. Vincent navigates Manhattan traffic with the efficiency of someone who knows every shortcut, every back alley, every way to avoid the gridlock that traps normal people. Dante makes 3 phone calls in Italian, his tone clipped and authoritative. The restaurant is the kind of place that doesn't advertise because it doesn't have to. A discreet entrance on a quiet street. A host who greets Dante by name with the kind of deference that speaks of both respect and fear. We're led to a private booth in the back, and I notice how other diners watch us pass with obvious curiosity. They're wondering who you are, Dante murmurs, helping me into my seat. By tomorrow morning, everyone who matters will know I got married. Is that the goal? Make sure your cousin knows you've met the will's conditions? Partially. He orders wine without consulting me. Expensive wine, based on the sommelier's expression. Also establishing that you're under my protection. That matters in certain circles. What circles? He waits until the wine is poured and we're alone again. The kind where reputation and perception are currency, where showing weakness gets you killed. The casual way he mentions death makes my stomach tighten. Is that something I should be worried about? Getting killed because I'm your wife? No. The certainty in his voice is absolute. Anyone who touches you answers to me. That's not a threat most people are willing to face. Are you still with me? Drop an emoji in the comments if you're as hooked on this story as I am. Because what happens next changes everything. We're halfway through an appetizer I barely taste when a man approaches our table. Older, maybe 60, with silver hair and an expensive suit. His eyes linger on me with obvious interest before moving to Dante. Caruso, I heard rumors you'd settled down. Didn't believe them until now. Dante's posture doesn't change, but I feel the shift in energy. Marcus, surprised to see you out and about. I would have thought you'd be busy with your legal situation. Understanding dawns. This is Marcus Hayes, the man who framed me, standing 3 feet away, acting like we're all civilized people at a nice dinner. All a misunderstanding, Marcus says smoothly. Once the FBI realizes certain evidence was fabricated by a disgruntled employee, don't. I surprise myself by speaking. My voice comes out steady, stronger than I feel. Don't stand there and lie to his face when we both know exactly what you did. Marcus's expression hardens. Jessica, I'm surprised Caruso is letting you speak for yourself. Most of his associates know better than to... Dante's hand moves. Fast. Not violent, but precise. His fingers wrap around Marcus's wrist, and whatever pressure he applies makes Marcus's face go pale. My wife speaks when she wants, Dante says quietly, and you address her with respect, or you don't address her at all. Understood? Marcus nods, and Dante releases him. He steps back, cradling his wrist, and something cold enters his expression. Something that looks like calculation. Congratulations on your marriage, he says, but the words sound like a threat. I hope it lasts longer than most in your line of work. He walks away, I realize I'm shaking slightly, adrenaline flooding my system. He knows, I say. He knows you helped me. He suspects, Dante corrects. There's a difference. He signals the waiter for our main course like nothing happened. And by tomorrow, he'll know that suspecting something and being able to prove it are also very different things. We eat. The food is incredible, but I barely taste it. I'm too aware of the other diners watching us, of the way Dante's presence seems to command the entire room, of the ring on my finger that marks me as his. Back at the penthouse, I head straight for my room. I need space. Need to process everything that's happening too fast. Jessica, Dante's voice stops me at my door. We need to establish some ground rules. I turn. He's loosened his tie, and somehow that small gesture makes him look even more dangerous, more real. I thought we established them before I signed the prenup, I say. Those were legal terms. These are practical ones. He moves closer, and I resist the urge to step back. When we're in public, we're a couple. That means I touch you, hold your hand, put my arm around you, kiss you if the situation requires it. I need you comfortable with that level of physical contact. My pulse quickens. And in private? In private, we're business partners, respectful roommates, whatever you're comfortable with. His eyes search my face. But the public performance has to be convincing, Jessica. My cousin is looking for any reason to contest the will. We can't give him ammunition. So we need to sell it. I force myself to hold his gaze. Make everyone believe we're actually in love. Not love, he corrects. Love is unpredictable, hard to fake convincingly. We need them to believe in something simpler. Mutual attraction, respect, partnership. That's easier to maintain. He's right, I realize. And the fact that he's thought this through so carefully, that he understands the psychology of the performance we're staging, reminds me exactly who I'm dealing with. A man who plans everything, who leaves nothing to chance, who survived in a world where mistakes get you killed. Okay, I say, but I need something from you too. Name it. Tell me about your grandfather, about why this inheritance matters so much that you'd marry a stranger to secure it. For a moment, I think he won't answer. Then he gestures to the living room. It's a long story. We sit on opposite ends of the massive sofa. Dante pours himself a whiskey from a crystal decanter. Offers me one. I decline. My grandfather built this organization from nothing, he begins. Came to New York from Sicily with $200 and a willingness to do whatever it took to survive. He wasn't a good man by most definitions, but he was loyal to his people, protected them, provided for them, and he made sure I understood that power without responsibility is just cruelty. He swirls the whiskey, watching the amber liquid catch the light. When he got sick last year, he knew my cousin Antonio would destroy everything if he inherited. Antonio's reckless, violent for the sake of violence. He'd turn our operations into something that draws federal attention and gets people killed. Dante's voice drops. So my grandfather put conditions in his will. Conditions designed to force me to prove I could think beyond just business, that I could build something stable, something that wouldn't collapse the moment he was gone. A marriage, I say softly, a partnership, someone who'd challenge me, keep me from becoming like my father. His eyes meet mine. He was very specific about the kind of person he wanted me to marry. Someone educated, independent, someone who chose to be there rather than being born into it. Understanding settles in my chest. He wanted you to marry someone like me. He wanted me to marry someone exactly like you, Dante confirms. He just didn't live long enough to meet you. Silence falls between us. Not uncomfortable, but weighted with things neither of us knows how to say. I'm sorry for your loss, I offer finally. Thank you. He stands, setting down the empty glass. We have a family dinner tomorrow night. My mother, my sister. They'll want to meet you. Be prepared for questions. What should I tell them? A smile touches his mouth, but it doesn't reach those gray eyes. Tell them we met at a charity gala. Tell them it was love at first sight. Tell them whatever you think they want to hear, Jessica. Because in this family, the truth is whatever we decide it is. He leaves me alone with that disturbing thought. The days blur together. Morning coffee with Dante while we review the day's schedule. Afternoon spent with Sophia, learning the intricacies of my new public role. Evenings at restaurants or charity events or business dinners where I play the devoted wife while Dante conducts whatever business he actually conducts. We fall into a rhythm, a dance where we both know the steps but never quite touch more than necessary. Professional, polite, partners in deception, but something's changing. I notice it first in small moments, the way Dante's hand lingers on my lower back when we enter a room, how his eyes find mine across crowded spaces, the careful distance he maintains in private, as if he's afraid of what might happen if we get too close. 3 weeks into the arrangement, I find him in his study at 2 a.m. Can't sleep, he says, too much on his mind. I should go back to my room, should maintain the boundaries we've established. Instead, I sit in the chair across from his desk. Tell me about your family, I say, and he does. Stories about his mother, who still grieves his grandfather daily, his sister Maria, who's in medical school and determined to build a life outside the family business, the weight of being the one everyone depends on to make the right decisions. What about you? He asks. You never talk about your family. Not much to tell. I trace the rim of the whiskey glass he'd poured for me. My parents died in a car accident when I was 20. No siblings, just me. His expression softens. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago, but my throat tightens anyway, because it wasn't, not really. 10 years isn't enough time to stop missing people who defined your entire world. Is that why you work so hard? Dante asked quietly. Because you're trying to prove something to them? The question hits too close to truth. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just trying to prove something to myself. He stands, moves around the desk, and sits in the chair beside mine instead of across from me. The shift in proximity makes my pulse quicken. You don't have to prove anything, he says. Not to me, not to anyone, says the man who married a stranger to secure an inheritance. I didn't marry a stranger. His eyes hold mine. I married someone who reminds me that there are still people in the world who refuse to be broken by circumstances they didn't choose. That matters, Jessica. More than you realize. The moment stretches. Charged. Dangerous. I should leave. Should go back to my room and maintain the safe distance we've established. Instead, I lean forward, and his hand comes up to cup my face, with surprising gentleness. This complicates things, I whisper. I know. We agreed it was just business. I know that, too. His thumb traces my cheekbone, my breath catches, and then we're kissing, soft and careful and absolutely inevitable. His mouth tastes like whiskey and dark promises. His hands frame my face like I'm something precious that might break. When we pull apart, both breathing hard, reality crashes back. I should go, I say. You should, he agrees. Neither of us moves. Then his phone buzzes, sharp, insistent. He pulls it from his pocket, reads the screen, and his entire demeanor changes. The man who was kissing me seconds ago vanishes, replaced by someone harder, colder. There's a problem, he says, standing. I need to handle it. What kind of problem? He hesitates, clearly weighing how much to tell me. The kind that requires my immediate attention. Vincent will stay here with you. Don't leave the penthouse until I return. Dante. Please, Jessica. His voice softens slightly. Trust me on this. Stay here where it's safe. He's gone before I can argue. I spend the next hour pacing my room, trying to ignore the fear settling in my stomach. Because Dante's world isn't corporate boardrooms and legal negotiations. It's violence kept barely at bay. And I'm now part of that world whether I'm ready for it or not. My phone rings at 4 a.m. Unknown number. I almost don't answer. Hello? Mrs. Caruso. The voice is male, accented, amused. I hope I'm not disturbing your beauty sleep. Ice floods my veins. Who is this? A business associate of your husband's, someone he's been very rude to recently. A pause. I thought we should meet, discuss how you might convince him to be more reasonable in his negotiations. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. You're just the innocent wife who knows nothing about her husband's activities. The amusement in his tone makes my skin crawl. But here's something you should know, Mrs. Caruso. In our world, wives aren't protected from consequences. When your husband makes decisions that cost people money, those people find creative ways to express their displeasure. The line goes dead. I'm getting emotional over here just writing this. Comment below if your heart is racing as much as mine is right now. Because what's coming next? I still can't believe it. I call Dante immediately. It goes to voicemail. I call Sophia. Same result. Vincent is stationed outside the penthouse door, but bringing this to him feels like admitting vulnerability I'm not ready to acknowledge. Instead, I spend the rest of the night researching, digging into Dante's business dealings, the properties he owns, the companies connected to his name, and what I find makes the fear in my stomach crystallize into something sharper. He's not just gray area operations, he's deep into territory controlled by rival families. Someone is clearly unhappy about it. Dante returns at dawn, blood on his knuckles, exhaustion etched in every line of his face. He stops short when he sees me sitting in the living room, clearly waiting for him. You're up early, he says carefully. Someone called me. I stand, cross my arms. A man with an accent said he was a business associate of yours. Suggested we should meet to discuss how I might convince you to be more reasonable. Every trace of exhaustion vanishes from Dante's face. What did you tell him? Nothing. He hung up before I could respond. I meet his eyes directly. But you need to tell me what's happening, right now. No more protected ignorance. If I'm a target because I'm your wife, I deserve to know why. He runs a hand through his hair. It's complicated, then uncomplicated. For a long moment, I think he won't. Then he sinks onto the sofa, gestures for me to sit beside him, and begins explaining. There's a man named Antonio Rossi, his cousin, the one who would inherit if Dante's marriage is contested or invalidated. And Rossi has spent the last month trying to prove that our marriage is fake, that it's a fraud designed to circumvent their grandfather's will. He's hired investigators, Dante says. People to follow us, photograph us, find evidence that we're not actually a couple. And when that didn't work, he started making threats. The phone call, I realize. Rossi is trying to scare you, make you leave. If you walk away from the marriage before the 6-month mark, he gets everything. Dante's jaw tightens. I won't let that happen. So what do? We prove him wrong. His eyes meet mine. We make this marriage so convincingly real that even his best investigators can't find a crack in it. Understanding settles heavy in my chest. You want us to actually live like we're married. I want us to be what we're pretending to be, he corrects, in every way that matters. The implication hangs between us. Last night's kiss, the way we've been circling each other for weeks, the attraction neither of us has acknowledged, but both of us feel. This wasn't the agreement, I say softly. The agreement was 6 months of playing a role, Dante counters. I'm just suggesting we play it more convincingly. By sleeping together? By being partners, in every sense. He reaches out, takes my hand. I'm not saying we have to sleep together, Jessica. I'm saying we stop pretending we don't want to, that we stop maintaining this artificial distance, that we see what happens when we're honest about what this is becoming. My pulse hammers, because he's right. These past weeks have shown me someone completely different from the dangerous criminal I expected. Someone thoughtful, protective, someone who makes me laugh over morning coffee and challenges me during late-night conversations. Someone I'm falling for despite every logical reason not to. If we do this, I say carefully, if we blur those lines, what happens at the end of 6 months? When the divorce becomes official? I don't know, he admits, but I know that pretending we're strangers who sleep in separate rooms isn't working. Rossi's investigators can tell. They're trained to spot inauthenticity, and right now, we're giving them exactly what they need to build their case. He's manipulating me, I realize, using logic and pressure and the very real threat his cousin represents to push me toward a decision I'm not sure I'm ready for. But he's also being honest, more honest than he has been since we made this arrangement, and that matters. One condition, I say finally, name it. If we're doing this, if we're actually trying, then no more secrets, no more protecting me from the dangerous parts of your world. I'm either in this completely, or I'm not in it at all. Dante studies me for a long moment, then nods. Agreed. We shake on it. Professional, businesslike, as if we're not agreeing to turn a fake marriage into something terrifyingly real. The shift is immediate and disorienting. That night, Dante doesn't retreat to his own room after dinner. Instead, we watch a movie together on the sofa, his arm around me, my head on his shoulder. It feels natural in a way that terrifies me, like we've been doing this for years instead of hours. When I finally head to my room, he follows, stops at my door with a question in his eyes. Not tonight, I say softly, but soon. Soon, he agrees. 3 days later, we attend a gallery opening in Chelsea. Rossi is there, watching us with cold calculation. Dante's hand doesn't leave contact with my body the entire evening. When we leave, he kisses me in front of the photographers, deep and thorough, and absolutely convincing. In the car ride home, neither of us speaks. The tension is thick enough to taste. Vincent drops us at the penthouse. We ride the elevator in silence, and when the doors open into Dante's apartment, everything changes. His mouth finds mine before we're fully inside. My back hits the wall, and his hands are everywhere, careful but insistent. Weeks of restraint dissolving in seconds. Tell me to stop, he breathes against my lips. Don't stop. We make it to his room. Clothes disappear. His hands worship every curve of my body like I'm something holy. And when he finally moves inside me, it's with a gentleness that makes tears sting my eyes. Look at me, he whispers. I do. And in his storm gray eyes, I see something that makes my chest ache. Not just desire, something deeper, something dangerous. Afterwards, we lie tangled together, his fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder. This changed everything, I say into the darkness. I know. What happens now? Now we figure out how to make this work. His arms tighten around me, for however long we have. The next morning, everything feels different. Breakfast isn't just routine, it's intimate. His hand finds mine across the table. We share glances that mean something neither of us has named yet. Sophia arrives at 10 with updates on the case against Marcus. The FBI has expanded their investigation. They're looking at his entire operation. I might need to testify eventually, but my name has been effectively cleared. You're free, she says. The charges will be formally dropped within the week. I should feel relief. Instead, all I feel is the weight of what that means. The terms of our arrangement specified 6 months. But what if I don't want to leave anymore? That afternoon, I find Dante in his study. We need to talk. He looks up from his computer, sees my expression, immediately gives me his full attention. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. That's the problem. I pace his office. The charges against me are being dropped. My reputation is being restored. All the things you promised are happening. But Dante, I don't want to leave at the end of 6 months. Silence falls between us. Heavy, charged. What are you saying? His voice is carefully neutral. I'm saying this stopped being fake somewhere along the way. I'm saying I've fallen for you and I don't know how to unfeel that. And I'm saying that in 3 months when our agreement ends and we're supposed to divorce, I don't think I can walk away. He stands, crosses the room, and pulls me against him. Then don't. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. His hands frame my face. Jessica, I married you because I needed to secure an inheritance, but I'm keeping you because somewhere between that first night and now, you became the most important thing in my life. My breath catches. You mean that? I've never meant anything more. He kisses me softly. Stay. Not because of the agreement, not because of the money. Stay because you want this life with me, because you're willing to navigate all the complicated, dangerous, impossible parts of being married to someone like me. Tears burn my eyes. Your world is terrifying. I know. I might not always fit in it. You already fit perfectly. And when your cousin contests the will anyway, when he finds some other way to challenge this, then we fight him. Dante's voice hardens. Together, the way partners do. Partners. The word settles in my chest with perfect weight. Okay, I whisper. Okay, I'll stay. He kisses me again, deeper this time, and I taste promise in it. Commitment. Forever wrapped in a single moment. Wait until you see what happens next. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, drop a comment and let me know, because this story isn't over yet. The next 2 weeks are the happiest I've ever been. We stop pretending we're anything other than genuinely married. Morning coffee becomes lazy mornings in bed. Dinners out are followed by dancing in the living room. He introduces me to his mother and sister as his wife, with pride that has nothing to do with inheritance and everything to do with love. Then Antonio Rossi makes his move. It happens at a family dinner. Dante's mother has invited us to her estate in Westchester. The whole family is there, cousins, aunts, uncles, and Rossi, watching everything with cold calculation. We're halfway through dessert when he stands, glass of wine in hand. I'd like to propose a toast, he announces, to my dear cousin Dante and his lovely new wife, Jessica. May their marriage last much longer than the 6 months specified in their prenuptial agreement. The room goes silent. Dante's hand tightens on mine under the table. I don't know what you're implying, Antonio, Dante's mother says carefully. I'm not implying anything. Rossi smiles. I'm stating facts. Dante married Jessica exactly 37 days before the deadline specified in grandfather's will. They signed a prenuptial agreement that includes divorce terms after 6 months, and they met for the first time the same night. Jessica was publicly accused of embezzlement by her former employer, who happens to be someone Dante had been investigating for money laundering. Each word lands like a bomb. I can feel eyes turning toward us, judgment forming in real time. You're suggesting this is a marriage of convenience, Dante says, his voice dangerously quiet. I'm suggesting it's fraud. Rossi pulls papers from his jacket. I have statements from investigators, photographs showing you sleeping in separate rooms for the first 3 weeks, financial records proving you paid off Jessica's debts before the wedding. Everything necessary to prove this marriage is a sham designed to circumvent grandfather's will. Dante stands. His entire demeanor has changed. This isn't the man I wake up next to anymore. This is the dangerous criminal I was warned about. You're right, he says. My heart stops. I did marry Jessica to secure my inheritance. I did pay investigators to find someone appropriate. I did orchestrate the entire arrangement. He pauses. And then something unexpected happened. I fell in love with my wife. The room erupts in murmurs. Rossi's confident expression falters. The marriage may have started as business, Dante continues, his hand finding mine, but it became real. Jessica knows everything about my world, about my business, about the gray areas I operate in, and she chose to stay anyway. Not because of money, not because of an agreement, but because what we have is worth fighting for. He pulls me to my feet, and his eyes hold mine with absolute certainty. So yes, Antonio, investigate all you want. Bring your evidence to the family lawyers. Contest the will. Do whatever you think you need to do. Because it won't change the fact that Jessica is my wife in every way that matters, and she's not going anywhere. Silence falls. Then Dante's mother stands. Antonio, I think you should leave. Mother. Now. The authority in her voice brooks no argument. Rossi gathers his papers with stiff movement and storms out. The room relaxes incrementally. Later, in the car ride home, I finally find my voice. Did you mean it? What you said? Every word. Dante's hand finds mine. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was afraid you'd think it was just part of the arrangement. I love you too, I whisper. I should have said it weeks ago. He pulls me against him, and we ride the rest of the way in comfortable silence. Content, complete. The will contest takes 3 months to resolve. Rossi's lawyers argue fraud. Dante's lawyers counter with evidence of genuine commitment. Phone records, photographs, testimony from Sophia and Vincent, and a dozen other people who've watched our relationship evolve from arrangement to reality. In the end, the judge rules in our favor. Not because he's convinced the marriage started legitimately, but because he's convinced it's become real. And that, he says, was always the spirit of Dante's grandfather's will. Partnership, commitment, building something that lasts. We celebrate quietly, just the two of us on the penthouse terrace, watching Manhattan glitter in the distance. So, I say, leaning against his chest, what now? Now we live the life we've been pretending to live. His arms tighten around me. I keep running the business. You find work you're passionate about. We argue about whose turn it is to pick dinner. We build something normal in the middle of all this chaos. Normal sounds boring. Normal sounds perfect. 6 months after our wedding, the prenuptial agreement's divorce terms become enforceable. We're supposed to separate, divide assets, move on with our separate lives. Instead, we burn the papers. Married for real, Dante says, watching the flames consume our escape clause. Married forever, I agree. He kisses me as the last of the document turns to ash, and I know with absolute certainty that I made the right choice that night at the plaza. Not because I married a wealthy man who could solve my problems, but because I married a partner who saw my strength and matched it with his own. Marcus Hayes is eventually convicted of embezzlement and fraud. He serves 8 years. My name is completely cleared. I accept a position at a nonprofit that investigates financial crimes against vulnerable communities. And every night I come home to a penthouse in Tribeca, where my husband waits with dinner and stories about his day, and love that's proven itself through actions, not just words. Did this story touch your heart the way it touched mine? If you love this journey, please subscribe to the channel for more stories about love that conquers all odds. Drop a comment telling me what moment hit you hardest. And remember, sometimes the greatest love stories start with the most impossible circumstances. Thank you for being here with me tonight. The end.